In this week's EV news, Octopus launch a salary sacrifice scheme for used electric cars alongside new ones. There's a warning that the Chinese electric car invasion could cripple Britain. The painfully slow grid is holding up UK electric car adoption. And Newcastle Airport releases its plans for a new ultra-rapid charging hub. Welcome back to another EV News where we feature some of the biggest news stories from the past week. There was less hydrogen drama after the last video than I expected, so if you haven't seen that yet, there's a link in the description if you'd like to catch up. As always, make sure you like this video, and if you're new here, subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on the next one. First up, good news for anyone that has access to a salary sacrifice scheme at work through Octopus electric vehicles. They've announced that they're now going to be offering used EVs on salary sacrifice as well as brand new ones, slashing the costs as a result. Hailed as a game-changing new scheme, it sees customers able to lease an EV for less than £300 a month. These schemes include insurance, maintenance, tyres, all that stuff, and with Octopus as well you also get access to a home charger. It's interesting because people definitely want cheaper EVs, there's no doubt about that, and the salary sacrifice schemes were already seen as a good way of getting cheaper EVs. Octopus can use it though, can't they, to escape some of the falling used values. If they have cars on their fleet for a little bit longer because they go out to a second hirer, then they ride out the depreciation curve a bit more. So I think that is quite an interesting move from them. The value proposition of salary sacrifice obviously depends on your circumstances. The actual cost to you depends on which tax bracket you're in and all that stuff. But lots of people like the all-inclusive nature of these deals. You don't have to worry about tyres, consumables, maintenance, all that stuff. It is just one monthly payment and that takes care of everything. I do wonder when we start talking about used cars on salary sacrifice though, what happens with warranties. So battery warranties obviously are always longer than we need to worry about. So most cars come with like an 8-year battery warranty. So that's not going to be a concern if we've got a couple of 2 or 3 year leases in there. But the manufacturer's warranty for the rest of the car tends to be quite a bit shorter than that. Now I know that some brands have long warranties, but a lot of them it's like 3 or 4 years. So you could be in a situation where the manufacturer's warranty is actually coming to an end, but you've got this all-inclusive package that includes all your costs. But what happens if something goes wrong with the car that would normally have been covered by the warranty? Now I don't know if are Octopus going to stand behind this, or are they going to offer some kind of warranty as part of their lease? I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Details are a little bit thin on the ground right now. I think you probably need to be a member of the scheme to be able to see what the actual terms are, but it'll be interesting to see, I think, where you're going to stand with warranties with these things. Time will tell what this is going to look like. What I do wonder though, if it might actually firm up used values for EVs. Leasing companies hanging on to cars for that little bit longer and riding out that depreciation also slows the massive influx of second-hand EVs into the market. So I do wonder what that's going to look like. Used leases aren't a new concept, these like second user lease things. Lease companies have been doing this for ages and ages, and they do it with petrol and diesel cars too. This isn't an EV only thing. But this is the first time anybody's ever offered them on salary sacrifice. What do you think? Would a used salary sacrifice car appeal to you, or would you insist on new and pay the extra that goes with it? I mean, I think price is going to be everything. In some of our marketing they've done with this so far, they're making it look like you'd be looking at almost half price versus new. If it's cheap enough, I definitely think they'll have people taking it up, but it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Next up, you might be forgiven for thinking that this is a batshit conspiracy theory from my comments or from Twitter, but sadly not. Britons face major security issues from Chinese cars, warns Professor Jim Saker, president of the Institute of the Motor Industry, who presumably represents car makers with manufacturing operations in the UK. He says that there is no way of stopping Chinese cars from coming under remote control, adding, the car manufacturer may be in Shanghai and could stop 100 to 300,000 cars across Europe, thus paralysing a country. Saker pointed to a report published earlier this month where MPs warned that China has successfully penetrated every sector of the British economy. And of course, he finishes off this paranoid rant by saying that Britain should focus on hydrogen power instead, since the technology doesn't need minerals like lithium to be imported from abroad. I am quite frankly amazed by this. So this whole idea hinging around the fact that China is going to sell us a bunch of cars, and then at some point they're going to decide, right, we're going to flick a switch, we're going to turn them all off, and we're going to paralyse the country. I mean, it is like the plot of an action movie, isn't it? I could see someone making a film about this. But I am amazed that someone in a position like his thinks that it's appropriate to broadcast this type of baseless xenophobia to the world. But I guess what's really happening here is the general nutters of the internet, the people you find in the comments, the people you find on Twitter, the people you find on weird blogs and stuff that are often quoted as fact, sometimes bleed over into the real world and start unleashing this stuff in their positions of power where they'll actually maybe be taken seriously and start being quoted by the media. But let me know what you think in the comments. Are you worried about China remotely shutting your car down? Or, like the rest of us, do you live in the real world? Now it's used bargain of the week time, where I find a bargain or not on AutoTrader and share it with you. Now, I'm going to need you to strap on your big boy pants this week because we're moving away from sensible super minis and compacts, Zoes, AMI even, ID3, all that sensible stuff we've done so far, and we're breaking out the big liability, big guns, the financially ruinous stuff. Let's go. How about a Jaguar I-Pace with just under 100, conveniently just under 100,000 miles on the clock? Yours for less than 20 grand. What could possibly go wrong? The dealer just oozes confidence as well if you look at the advert, because they even say that it's a hybrid in the advert, so they don't even know what they're selling. Just shut up and take my money, will you? Alright, it's a leggy Jaguar Land Rover product, so everything could possibly go wrong, if we're honest. But you can't help be a little bit tempted, can you? It's the cheapest I-Pace in the country, and I think this is the proper low-cost, big liability luxury EV I've seen so far. This is from the stable of people that go out and buy like a high-mileage Mercedes S-Class or BMW 7 Series and just roll the dice and hope it's going to be okay. Buying the cheapest I-Pace in the country is probably a terrible idea, alright? But somebody out there is going to be brave enough to do it, aren't they? Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you got the balls for a high-mileage, cheap I-Pace? Or would you buy something more sensible? Next then, something I think we already know about, but I think is also worth highlighting because I was quite surprised to see it framed as such in the media. The UK's shift to electric cars is being held up by the painfully slow connection of new chargers to the grid, SMMT have warned. Mike Hawes, chief executive, said that charging companies were being frustrated by the lack of affordable, fair and timely grid connections, slowing charger installs and ultimately putting customers off buying EVs because of the charging infrastructure. I do have sympathy with the charging providers because they're faced with delays to grid connections, not just for cars but for depots for vans, buses and trucks, he said. The whole ecosystem is painfully slow. Government have previously identified problems with grid connections as one of the critical issues holding up charging infrastructure, but ministers rejected a call by SMMT to set mandatory targets for rollouts. I mean, I guess it's not surprising, is it, that our current government are half-arsed in this, especially with the recent developments around new oil and gas licences and the legal challenge against London's ULEZ. You could be forgiven for thinking they're not taking any of this seriously at all. Will we see an improvement in how terribly slow the grid is? I doubt it, if I'm honest. However much it's needed, there'd need to be massive reform, and the regulator would need to actually be fit for purpose in order to make these changes happen. But let me know what you think in the comments. And finally, yet another charging infrastructure story. You all know by now how much I like one of those. Newcastle Airport have unveiled plans for a 12-bay ultra-rapid charging hub on airport land at Callerton Parkway, just off the A696 and minutes from the A1. Partnering with Fastned, who are very quickly becoming a force to be reckoned with for charging in the northeast, they'll have the trademark solar canopies that everybody loves that both helps the site stand out and helps you keep dry whilst you're charging. Plans also include a drive-through coffee shop, which I'm sure will be a very welcome addition to a charging hub. Now, I haven't had the chance to use any of Fastnet's chargers yet, but they do seem to be decent. They're one of those networks that just seem to be quietly getting on with it. I know they're much, much bigger in the rest of Europe than they are in the UK, but their sites just seem to pop up. Not very much gets said about them, and they just get on with it. And as far as I know, they're very reliable. They're not BP Pulse. They're not a network that I hear people saying, oh, they're terrible, you never get a charge. It always seems to be good stuff. Ultra rapid charging near an airport actually sounds like something that could be really popular. In the absence of, really slow destination charging in the long stay car parks, which we're a long way away from, I can see it being really useful. Either if you arrive early before a flight, you can top up so that you've got a decent charge to get home, or you come off your flight, quick charge, off you go. I think it sounds useful. I think it's better than having to search for a charger somewhere unknown. And I do think it will be a success. Hopefully we'll see more of this kind of thing popping up near airports. I know that Grid Server planning to open near Gatwick Airport, and I'm sure we will see more and more of this sort of charging hub, no matter who the provider is. It's definitely good news for Newcastle Airport though, and I look forward to seeing it open. But that's it for this week's AV News. As always, make sure you like this video and subscribe with notifications turned on so that you don't miss out on the next one. Make sure you also let me know in the comments your thoughts on any of these stories featured this week, even if you are going to rant on about how the Chinese are definitely going to turn your car off. It's always good to hear your points of view. I can't promise I'll take them seriously though. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.